Hello, and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. I'm delighted tonight to be joined by Record Sports version of the Chuckle Brothers, Keith Jackson and Scott McDermott. Guys, how's it going?
Yeah, hysterical. Yeah, thanks. You've added to the chuckle factor.
I just love doing that to see Keith's dry wit.
Just you're a natural comedian, mate.
Scott, you alright?
Not bad, apart from this cold that everybody's got, Daniel. But
Me and you both, mate. We've got nothing to laugh about apart from his tracksuit top.
Exactly.
Listen, guys. If you want to
soldiers will battle through it.
If you want to come out shopping with me, I'll teach you a wee lesson if you like. Well, more
Wait a minute, I'm trying to see, is that a 4-stripe?
It's Tommy Hilfiger. We need to start the show, Keith, with a big thank you.
Yeah, we do. We really do. A sincere one as well.
Aye. That's to everyone that has watched the show. We started, obviously, at the start of the season, but we're delighted to say that by the end of December, we'd managed to clock up 1 million unique views for that 1 month. And it's grown every month. So everyone watching at home, everyone that contributes with comments, we massively appreciate it. And the guys behind the camera as well. We've got a producer who really is called Henrik. Henrik and his team, Molly, producing tonight. They're amazing. And of course, all the writers as well. Hugely appreciated.
But mostly Daniel. And yes, everybody's. But yeah, it's the people that are tuning in back home and all that.
Absolutely.
Can't express enough how much we appreciate it. Given that we started this, it was basically 3 men in a bathtub, wasn't it?
Wait, us
in
with
the Alps.
If you remember, aye?
Yeah.
You know me and you in a bathtub, Jacko. No?
I think we left that clip out, Scott.
It's Hotline after dark. That's really. That's. Sorry, I can't get that image in my head now.
No, me neither now.
I'd love a Garmisch bathtub, you know.
Well, look, as I say, thank you very much to everyone at home. We massively appreciate it. And fingers crossed, with the January transfer window now in full flow, that we'll be able to...
Well, we should have something to talk about over the next few weeks, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
And by the way, we already do it tonight. There's some transfer stuff bubbling away, so
absolutely.
We will come round to that, Daniel.
And should mention as well...
By the way, before you got potentially big news for Rangers supporters on the transfer front.
Excellent. Stay tuned, Rangers fans. And it's worth mentioning as well that our resident referee, Des Roache, will be joining us very shortly. You know, I like my corners with Des.
Well, there's been things that we've had to discuss and that we didn't get the chance to discuss over the last few days because of various technical problems. Des's VAR broke down, etc., etc. But there are 2 issues that I want to talk about with Des from the weekend just past. I'd be really interested to get a kind of referee's viewpoint of them. So, if he's around, Daniel, why not bring him on?
Well, we'll see what we can do. And John, there in the comment section, saying that'll be a tight squeeze. I think he's referring to your bathtub, which is outrageous, guys. I won't stand for it.
You want to see the size of the tub?
Where should we start? Do you want to? Will we start with some Rangers news, with some of the transfer news that you were alluding to?
Yeah, fire away.
Well, one of the talking points that certainly made or done the rounds today is Nikola Katic.
Yeah,
is a name
that's the one I was going to talk about.
He's been on the lips of lots of Rangers fans today. He was trending on X throughout the day in Scotland. A lot of Rangers fans keen to see him back. I mean, Scott, what do you make of that? Do you think he would be up to filling the void that Rangers have in defence?
I think me or you could fill the void in defence. You know, Daniel, they're so short on bodies. The Katic one is interesting. From what I heard today, I mean, without wanting to put a dampener on it, I mean, I doubt whether it will happen or no, but his name has obviously been discussed. I think the player would be very keen to go back to Rangers. I don't think it'd be a difficult deal to do in that regard, or financially as well. I think it'd be pretty inexpensive, but the kind of vibe I'm getting is that Rangers don't want to do it, or don't fancy getting Katic back. Now, I don't know the reasons for that specifically, but when you think about when he was here first time, obviously under Steven Gerrard, who signed him, and he then had a bad knee injury, tried to come back, and it never really happened for him. I think the big kind of question mark or the criticism over Katic at that time was that he didn't feel he was quite good enough on the ball, not to play it for the back. No, he's obviously powerful and he's got the physique and he's aggressive in the air and stuff like that. But I think on the deck, they just felt he lacked a wee bit for the way they wanted to play. And I just wonder whether that's something that Philippe, Clement and Rangers are thinking about as well, as whether he's quite up to the standard in terms of playing out for the back. I mean, I've been critical of Robin Proper, who's come in, and I'm still not convinced that he's good enough to be a Rangers centre-back. But I don't think you could argue that he's better on the ball than what Katic is. No, he is that type of player. So whether they've looked at that or not, I don't know. But listen, I think the player would be very keen. He's a name that's obviously been discussed, but I must admit I'd be surprised if it happened.
Surely, Keith, that is the one thing they've got. Decent footballers, John Souttar as well, obviously at the back, Rangers. Surely the one thing they're missing is
a proper defender.
Aye, that can hit
if
the
you
ball.
Pardon the pun.
Aye, that can
not
actually
Robin.
hit the ball.
Yeah, for me all day long. The only thing that I can add to this is that I believe that there has been contact made. There have been some sort of discussions had behind the scenes whereby Rangers have been made aware that this deal is on the table and it's there to be done. I think there's a number of clubs have been contacted, and I think there's interest, and it looks very much like Nikola Katic will be on the move, be that back to Ibrox or to England or something over the course of the next few weeks. I hear what Scott says. I don't doubt him. I don't doubt his information. I think that's probably exactly right. But this is coming from the scouting department that gives you a list of really kind of difficult to work out transfer targets over the last 12 months or so. Niels Koppen has not covered himself in glory. There have been arguments, by the way, between Niels Koppen and Philippe Clement about who they should be targeting. I think there might even be a bit of a power battle between the two in terms of who should be getting the final say on transfer targets. If I put it this way, I tell you all day long, if I was Philippe Clement right now, if I've got one ball playing centre half, be that Souttar, Balogun's useful with the ball at his feet. I don't know what Proper really does. He certainly doesn't defend. Nikola Katic was an absolute beast, a machine. He was not just good defensively for Rangers in terms of defending his own penalty box, a real threat in the opposition penalty box. Rangers haven't had that in I don't know how long. Katic, for me, he was rapid over the ground, strong in the tackle, I mean, almost impossible to beat in the air, and also gives you that threat in the opposition box. If I've got one like that, I just want the one sitting next to him. He can be the guy that can distribute out for the back. Just give me one that stops, one that plays. And that for me is, I think, once again, we've spoken about this with Rangers, a tendency under Philippe Clement to overcomplicate things. For me, I want my, yes, of course, the modern day central defenders are better if you can, Virgil van Dijk's the full package, can do all the defensive stuff, but can get you moving out from the back. That's what you want. Rangers aren't going to be able to afford to buy Virgil van Dijk or anything like him. So, if you've got one that can play a bit and one that does all the dirty defensive duties, I think that's a pretty good compromise. I would certainly be really interested in it if I was Rangers, but I don't doubt Scotty's information. And by the way, do you know what? It doesn't surprise me.
Well, look, the fans that have written in definitely agree with you, Dave Gibson. I'd have Katic back in a heartbeat. Should never have been forced out in the first place. He wasn't given enough time after his ACL injury. Jim Phillips, Katic is a great defender who gives all for the cause, get him back immediately. Katic is an obvious option, but Clement rarely does the obvious, as we know. And let me just finish with this one from Rangers Easy OK on YouTube. January will be interesting for us. Will the club try to push the boat out to back Clement, which would suggest he's here long term, or will they play it conservative that would suggest Clement will be off in the summer and could give a new manager more funds?
A couple of things to add at this point. I've just had a text through there about this, which makes me kind of even more convinced, not that I doubted him, that wee Scotty's information is spot on. but also confirming what I said, that the name has been put to Rangers, and that they are very much aware, and that if they want to do a move, the player himself is right up for it.
One thing's for certain, Daniel. They need a centre back in.
But Scott, that's what I was about to say. That the one thing, will the Rangers board push the boat out? I don't think so. I think the noises that I'm hearing, I don't know about you, but the noise I'm hearing is, unless they can raise a bit of unexpected money by selling somebody, it'll be one in for December, and that one will be a centre half. Now Katic's there, obviously throwing his name into the ring, and you've got Johnny Evans as a name that I think Clement has been encouraged to consider. Niels Cobbin encouraged to consider. Again, that's another one. For me, Katic would be a better long-term sort of project than a guy that's now 37. But either way, you're talking about two guys that would certainly take care of it and add a bit of steel to the Rangers' defence, and that they really like that.
The problem is, Jacko, I agree. I think it probably will only maybe be one or two, and it'll probably mean people having to go out. But this is a problem for Clement and Rangers now because of the injuries. Because if Balogun, Suter, and Casemiro were all fit and available, he wouldn't be looking at centre backs. If he was bringing one or two in, I was thinking about it today in terms of what Rangers really need. I still think they need a strong, powerful defensive midfielder if they could get one. I know Raskin's come in and done a great job, but I think he's the only one that can really do that job that they're asking him to do. I think they need somebody. I think they need a bit of power in there and a bit of physique. And I think they would also like to get another attacking player in, whether that be a wide player or another striker, probably another wide player with pace, because I think we've all said on here they lack a bit of serious pace in the final third. But that's the issue they've got now, is that this defensive injury crisis is kind of crept up on them, and they now need to deal with it. I mean, you're looking at the game at Dens Park on Thursday night, and I mean, who's playing centre back? I mean, Proper's suspended. You could be looking at Leon King and Clinton and Ciala, a 19-year-old French guy who's not played a first team game, getting in at centre back if Leon Balogun doesn't make himself available after injury. So they're really toiling in there, and I think that's maybe thrown them a bit. The centre back is now a real priority when it probably wasn't 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah,
do you know something? I know I'm going off at a tangent here, and I know that I keep clubbing Clement over the head with things that he said, but that's because he said them. I mean, what was it, a year ago, Scott? He started all this chat about, he was going to, I don't know what he thought he was going to do, bring Marvin Andrews into the medical department, but injuries were apparently going to be a thing of the past. This was everybody else's fault, that I've got a string of injuries here. This will never happen again under me. Oh, I'm sorting this in the summer. What a stupid thing it was to say, that he's going to bring in new personnel and that's going to mean Rangers ain't going to have injuries anymore. The injury situation he's got just now is worse than the one that he inherited.
I know, it's crazy. I think they did have a shake-up with the medical department, but
it's not done a lot of good, has it?
Saying it so, how can you possibly predict that?
Aye.
Exactly, that's why it was a silly thing to say. It was just such a silly thing to say, among many silly things to say that have been said over the last 18 months or so. 12.
I'm desperate to bring Des Roache in, guys, but before we do, see, just on Johnny Evans, that's got quite a strong reaction on Record Sports social media channels as well. Dave Joyce, we're currently seeing our teams play 3 times every 7 days. Johnny Evans is a has-been and won't last a fortnight. He plays the odd game for United.
I wonder what Dave said when they signed Davy Weir.
Aye, true, I know, it's a good point. Pat says Johnny Evans better off signing Johnny Vegas. I think Johnny Vegas plays right back though. And I even saw Philippe Benkovic, former Celtic player, and Ryan Porteous been linked, but that was Thomas here saying that's not going to happen. So I think plenty of work for Rangers to do this month.
Yeah. The Evans one is Jack was saying about Davy Weir there. I mean, that is a classic kind of Walter Smith, or it would be a classic Walter Smith style.
Well, you could see Walter Smith making that signing all day long, couldn't you?
Davy Weir, Ugo Ehio, people like that who came in and did a job. I mean, Evans would be an obvious one if you could get him short term and loan. I mean, vast experience. Still obviously operating at a really good level, of course. He's not got the pace he once had, but I mean, he still looks in great nick. And coming from Man U, as I see, even if it is short term, I think that, you know, if you're looking to no spend a lot of money, you wouldn't imagine that would be too expensive to do. That for me was the one that I thought they would probably try and do, just to get them over this period until they get Suter and Balogun in particular back. But as I say, it doesn't look at the moment as if it's going to happen.
And by the way, you've got to bear in mind, Scotty, a typical Walter Smith. Walter Smith would loved a centre half in the transfer window. In fact, Walter Smith would play 8 centre halves in his starting 11 at one time if he could. He'd play them at right back, left back, centre mid.
I think we went to the game, Jack, was at Old Trafford in the Champions League. Man United, funnily enough, are going there in a couple of weeks. But I mean, I genuinely think Walter played 6 centre backs across the defence.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like Broadfoot, Weir, Queller, Papac. I mean, they were all
Christian Daly.
And got away with a 0-0, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, look, in the transfer window's wide open, and I've managed to bring in a transfer, guys. The one and only Des Roache joins us now on the Hotline Live. Des, how are you?
I'm very well, guys. Enjoying listening in there and being the one to watch for a change.
Lovely to have you back in the show, Des. You know I like when you come on and give us a wee Hotline cameo. I believe Keith has some talking points he wants to raise with you directly.
No, not again.
Well, it's obvious, isn't it, Des? I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. There was 2 from the weekend that need, I think, a bit of scrutiny, and I'd like to hear the kind of officials' point of view on them. Aberdeen's red card at Fir Park and the Hibs penalty against Rangers at Easter Road. Take your pick.
Well, you're the host. You go first. You go. You answer.
Okay, let's start with the Hibs penalty kick for a foul on Josh Campbell by Yanis Hadji.
Yeah.
I must tell you, I'm really not convinced by this one, and I'll tell you for why in a minute. But please give me your thoughts.
Okay, so my initial thought when I watched the game was I thought it was a penalty kick. I thought it was a foul.
Agreed.
On the Hearts player.
On the Hearts player, what's he got to do?
Sorry, the Hearts player, the Hibs player. You know what I'm like with names? It's Edinburgh. Come on, give me a break.
Des, what have you done?
I know.
Of course now.
That's it. Open the can of worms. No, when the play was going through, I thought it was a penalty kick. Straight away, thought, okay, penalty. I then watched it in the slow motion, and it didn't change my opinion. My opinion on it, and the reason I'm sticking with it being a penalty, and I'm not being an after timer, is the initial contact came from Hadji. Hadji got across, made contact with his elbow, side of the body, onto the Hibernian player, which then, when the Hibernian player's also travelling at pace.
Contact sport.
Contact sport, absolutely. However, he made no contact with the ball. Right?
Yeah, but you can go shoulder to shoulder, Des.
That wasn't shoulder to shoulder, was it though? Because his shoulder's up here and he
he's getting his by the way, just good defending, get your body in between the man and the ball. That's all Hadji does there.
No, it was bad defending because he's giving away a foul because he's there for him.
He's giving away a foul because he had the legs chopped from beneath him by Josh Campbell.
So why?
Which is what VAR, which is the pictures that VAR were looking at. I'm astonished actually, Des, because I thought you might have agreed with me that the thing to do, if you're not sure, and I believe to give that penalty kick, there's guesswork involved. You've seen her coming together. You have got no idea who's responsible for the major part of the contact. The major part of the contact is Josh Campbell taking Hadji's legs out. Now, if you're not convinced, if you're not absolutely certain, I thought you told me you can't give the penalty. So why not just let it go for whether it was a corner kick or a by kick or I don't know. And then you've got guys sitting in Clydesdale House that look at the pictures and say, John, you might want to take a look at this. If the TV pictures show that it is a foul by Hadji, that he's the main culprit in that action, then VAR can get in his ear and tell him to go at the screen. Shouldn't that be the protocol?
Not necessarily. So what's happened is John has felt that he's seen that decision. So if he'd seen that decision in the middle of the pitch, if he'd seen that decision, whether it be any kind of tackle, he's the referee, he's the sole arbiter of the match. It's his call. VAR can't get involved too quickly because they're not there to re-referee the game. when you're talking about Campbell taking the legs from Hadji away, that was a secondary movement because of the first movement. The first movement involved the foul on Campbell. Campbell then can't control his motion because he's been knocked off balance, running at speed, running on the conditions it is. His legs have then come out and made contact with Hadji, which has brought Hadji down as a secondary movement. If John had then got it wrong, I would expect VAR to then come in and say, John, I think you might want to have another look at this. I'm perfectly happy from that. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but Hadji makes the initial contact and Hadji makes the initial movement of his body to have contact and impede.
And I'm saying that that's not a foul. The second part of the coming together is the foul, and that's Josh Campbell's legs taking Hadji's away. There's not enough. There's not enough. People have got to be able to, as a contact sport, defenders have to try and get the body between man and ball. There is just, on no basis is there enough to foul. But where I do agree with you, Des, is once he's made that decision, VAR was never going to say that's a clear and obvious error, because it wasn't. Yeah. But I think he's rushed into a decision. And I think he's rushed into the decision, maybe because the likes of ourselves used to say when VAR was introduced at first, these referees are frightened to make decisions now, they're letting VAR referee the match. Maybe there's an element of that, but I'd rather get it right. And I just, the more that I look at that, the more I don't think it was the right call.
The more I look at it, the more I think it is right.
I agree.
Des, do you think if John Beaton hadn't given the penalty, do you think VAR would have intervened and said, come over to the screen because we think this is a penalty? I don't think
I would like to. I can't obviously give the answers for Kevin, who was in VAR at that moment in time. I would like to think it did, because for me, and as just for me personally, I think the initial contact from Hadji knocks Campbell off balance. See, to be honest, if it hadn't been given, I don't think there'd be a mountain gate of people shouting for it, or clamouring about it. But for me, it's an obvious error. The contact is initiated by Yanis Hadji. He's came across the wrong side. He's made contact, and as we said, the secondary foul is when Campbell makes contact with Hadji because he's off balance and he can't stay up.
See, just to jump. I mean, I'll be honest. I've got no idea how you can look at it that way, Keith. I thought it was a penalty all day. Like
as soon as I saw it at real speed, Daniel, I thought penalty kick. Absolutely, I did.
Aye.
But it was a messy coming together, and I truly believe with the naked eye at full speed, it's almost impossible to tell. That's why we've got VAR, and I think the pictures conclusively show to me that the main part of the coming together, the main foul, was the secondary part, as Des called it there. I don't think the first bit of Hadji coming back and trying to get himself in between the man and the ball. If that's a penalty kick, then you'd see them giving, I don't know how many a game would you see that a defender putting himself. I think it's a ridiculous decision actually, and I really think, I get that John Beaton makes the decision and VAR can't then say no, that's a clear and obvious error, because it's not clear and obvious. 100% get that, but I think John Beaton's rushed into making it. And I think he should have been cleverer and just allowed that one to play, whether it was going for a bye kick or a corner. And then if VAR saw something that they were really unhappy with, they can say to him, John, come and have a look. You didn't see it properly.
And by the way, just to go back to what you said there, Des, I think if Hibs hadn't got that penalty, they would have been furious. I think they'd have been going mad about that. But who knows, I guess.
Scott, do you think both teams would deserve of it?
Aye.
I thought, Daniel, like the boys are saying, at very first viewing, I thought that's a penalty. But I tend to agree with Keith. I mean, if you're a manager, you're telling Yanis Hadji to get back and get ahead of your man and get in between the ball, to do your defending properly. And to me, that's what he does. I don't think you can do that without making some kind of contact with the player. And I agree with Jack. I think the main foul in it is Campbell and Hadji. I think Hadji gets in front and kind of gets there first. But listen, it's tight, and that's why I'm saying I think if John Beaton, listen, he must have been certain to give it on the pitch,
and he can't have been certain, Scott. Well, he can't. That's what I'm concerned. I think there's guesswork that's gone into that,
I would
and
like
as far
to think
as
there wasn't guesswork. I would really be shocked if there was guesswork, because
there has to be guesswork, Des, because the main foul is the Josh Campbell on Hadji.
no, I
So
think
there has to be guesswork.
I disagree, guys. If Hadji has won the ball and he's used his body to get to the ball first, and the contact is then made, that's fine. But Hadji makes no contact with the ball. The only time Hadji has got anywhere near the ball is after Campbell has been impeded. And therefore, Campbell then secondary movement impedes
Des,
Hadji.
that's not impeded. And this is why, and I hate to say this because believe it or not, I don't like referees getting a hard time, and I genuinely don't. And I don't like, I hear a lot of time, and I think it's a bit lazy and cliched for everybody to say we should get former players in there and all that. But I do think I can see the strength in the argument. And see, when we're having this conversation, I see it even more. Because I don't think a player looks at that and says that's a foul, the initial contact. I just don't. I don't think for a second a guy that a professional player would look at that and say that constitutes a penalty kick. Just don't.
I'm not saying this to be contrary, but I honestly agree with every word you say. This, like, I think that
I've spoken to a former professional who I'm very good friends with. The first question he said to me, "What do you think of the penalty?" And his words were, "It was a penalty."
Mm-hmm. I agree with
Well.
But that's what's great. We're allowed our opinions, and what do we say? I'll give you my opinion. I'll give you my decision. We don't always need to agree with it, but we don't need to fall out about it. So it's fine, and that's it. And say the biggest bit for me was the way Rangers are looking for the foul. See if Hadji had moved in one movement, made the ball and had the contact, no problem at all. But his initial contact makes Campbell off balance, and the secondary contact then brings down Hadji, which makes it look really clumsy and makes it look really untidy.
It was clumsy and untidy, 100%. But I tell you that the thing is that I'm feeling uncomfortable now is I'm starting to feel a little bit like Philippe Clement. Because the bottom line is Clement used that as an excuse for why it wasn't an excuse. That wasn't the reason that Rangers failed to win that match. But I just feel that I wanted to ask, for your opinion, Des, on if this is proper VAR protocol. For me, I'll say it again, if I'm John Beaton, let it go and let the guys that can get a proper view at that, because it was so ugly and so messy and so scrappy and tangled that the naked eye can't filter all that in a split second. The guys sitting with the remote controls and the TV, they can. And I if that's not the reason that VAR's there, then I don't know what is. But John Beaton, when he blows for the penalty, will also know that they're not going to say, no, John, you're not right. It's a clear and obvious mistake, because there's nothing clear and obvious about it.
But that's when we're talking about re-refereeing a game. If they do feel that,
but they were never going to do that. You would never do that, because it was a coming together. It was ugly. It was scrappy. Hadji was absolutely, he was on the wrong side and coming in from the wrong side. So it's never going to be overturned by VAR. But I think if VAR gets a look at it first and looks at the replays, I'm not sure that decision is given.
Look, interesting to see what the panel say, the SFA panel that look at it. I mean, given everything I've heard, for both sides of that, you would imagine it might be split. It might be very tight in terms of some people agreeing with it, some people disagreeing. So it'll be interesting to see the outcomes next week.
Mm-hmm. Right, ding ding, round 2, Des, Fir Park. Give us your verdict.
Red card.
Okay, why?
Because he's made a movement with his head into Tony Watt, not once, but twice. And there is nowhere in the laws of the game that says that you can challenge someone and aggressively move to someone using your head. Now, if he jumped up and grabbed him by the shirt or whatever, absolutely no problem, which he did have time to, but he chose not to. He chose to lean in with his head and move with his head in an upward motion. And the laws of the games clearly state where violent conduct is strikes or attempts to strike. So what has he done there? He's attempted to make contact with his head on someone. How
do you know that? You're actually you're trying to mind read now. So officials are mind reading. That's what you said. You have convicted the guy. He's been, was it Nick Walsh?
It was Nick, yes.
Nick's made the decision thinking that's what I think he was thinking about doing, because from every angle that I've seen, at no point there is one angle where it looks really as if Rubicic has got up and he has thrown his head into Tony Watt, and is actually, that headbutt's almost knocked him out. I don't know why, but is anybody else getting crowd noises in their ears? Thank you. And it looked to me as if, from that angle, it does look as if, because Tony Watt's head goes back, and you think, oh, Rubicic has actually stuck the nut on him. And there's no doubt about what that is. That's a red card, and it's a 12-game ban, by the way, if it's happened. But then there's other angles which show Rubicic gets up, there's a gap, there is no contact head-to-head. The movement and the reason that Tony Watt falls back is because he's pushed in the chest. Now, if we're still going to start red carding people for pushing people in the chest, game's gone.
Disagree. And again, this is it's split a couple of the group chats that we're on. As soon as you motion your head to make contact with someone, that's violence. That's violent. It doesn't matter whether you make contact with them or not. That is the movement. Don't get me wrong. Tony Watt doesn't cover himself in a lot of glory here. Tony Watt stood above him. He stooped into it. He's overreacted. But Rubicic has been. And it's not mind reading. And you're saying, I think that Nick Walsh has guessed this. Nick Walsh hasn't guessed it. Nick Walsh has watched it. He's seen it. He's seen the player move aggressively towards him, aggressively with a motion of his head, and aggressively up towards Tony Watt's head.
That's his interpretation of what's happened.
Yes, that ticks every single criteria for violent conduct. The player can have no qualms about that whatsoever. It's a clear red card.
Do you not think, is it not possible that Nick thinks he's seen something he hasn't seen? That, like me, he's looked at it and thinks, oh, he's got up and headbutted him. There's contact, and that's what sent Tony Watt down. So do you not think that's why the red card was produced?
So see if he'd thought that and he wasn't sure of it, that's when he would ask VAR. But he was obviously certain within himself to brandish the red card. Now, I'm going to take you back a number of years, and I'm not comparing them, so please don't any listeners or readers or viewers. Do you remember the World Cup final and Zidane headbutted Matt Tarazzi in the chest? So is that not violent conduct? He's made contact with the chest. So Rubicic has made contact in the same areas, using the same part of his head for the same reasons.
Do you think Rubicic's head makes contact with Tony Watt's chest?
There's certainly contact on the body. There's certainly, and then he's made that upward movement towards his chin. Yeah.
I disagree. I don't see the contact. I see the hand. I see him shoving Tony Watt in the chest. I don't see his head making contact anywhere.
No, if you watch,
and that's why, because when he pushes him in the chest, Tony Watt's head goes back the way, and it coincides with Rubicic's head coming up. And I think it's almost like an optical illusion. I think Nick Walsh believes that he's seen a headbutt landing on Tony Watt, and quite rightly, if you think that's what you've seen, red card. If the cameras show that isn't what happened and it was just a shove, I just...
So see if the cameras hadn't seen it, then he wouldn't have been sent off. But if he's put his hand out, as we've said there, to sort of hold him, then why has he continued the motion of his head upwards to go towards Tony Watt's head?
Well, he was coming up off the ground, wasn't he? He was coming up off the ground.
In a manner that was entirely unsuitable and entirely unfathomable for it. That's as long as I'm looking at it. And again, as I said, it has split decisions, it has split opinions. It's a red card, just for the total aggressive nature of it and having the double goal.
Scott,
you've got the deciding vote.
I can see where Des is coming from, and I think we need to accept that it probably is a red card by the letter of the law and by Rubicic's action, right? However, I do a couple of things.
You should get the game stopped.
No, listen. what I would say is, I think it's very soft, and like Des says, I don't think Tony Watt covers himself in glory.
No, he doesn't.
I think it was really poor for him. He overreacts. He's poor in the first place. The way he's shouting in Rubicic's face while he's on the ground, and then I think he overreacts to the contact. So I think it's soft, but I think Rubicic has been daft, and I think he's that type of player. I think he's volatile. He gets involved in stuff that he shouldn't get involved in, and that was another one. He doesn't need to get involved at all. He does. He gives the ref a decision to make, and of course, if there's contact anywhere with the head, then he's going to go off. But I do think. Do
you think there was contact, Scotty?
I think there's some kind of contact, but as I said, I think it's soft. I think he touches on his head on the body, but as I say, is that enough to get a red card? Probably by the letter of the law it is, but I don't know. I wasn't entirely comfortable with it. I think mainly because of Tony Watt's reaction and his part in it. I felt for Rubezic slightly in that regard. But it's one of the ones where...
They're not a bit like the Charlie Mulgrew, Kyle Lafferty.
I don't think there was any contact there, was there?
I don't think there was any contact in this one either.
If you let that one go, what do you accept?
Good point.
What's acceptable if you let that one go?
You accept that somebody might get shoved in the chest, Des?
Using their head?
I don't think he did.
I think there was a wee bit of contact. It wasn't much, but
it's not the worst. But it's the use of the head that's the killer for him. And you can say violent conduct or not violent. Probably the better category for that is a red card for absolute stupidity.
Listen, I'm not going to disagree with that. I would VAR give him a red on stupidity for reacting to it. And Scott's right, he has got this track record of a kind of hair trigger temper. That hasn't helped him in this case. I think you're right, Des, when you say there is an aggressive manner in which he gets up. But if he's not making contact with the head, and if it's a shove into the chest, I just don't see how that's a valid red card.
But do you know what,
Daniel? Do you think if Tony Watt doesn't go down the way he does and just stands there, that'd have been a red? I'm not sure it would have been.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I think the best point, though, to round our chat with Des off, though, is this comment on YouTube. It just shows you how subjective these decisions are. Days later, multiple views, no agreement. It's a fair point. They don't have an easy job.
Fair point. No, they don't. They don't. And that's why, believe it or not, I'm on their side. We argue and we give a bit of stick out and all that, and sometimes we might have a laugh at the expense of the officials, but there's no doubt about it. They've got a really tough job, and it's not made easier by the antics of some of the players. My overarching view on everything is that it is really difficult, and they're not going to get all the decisions right at first viewing, at full speed on the pitch. But that's why we've got VAR, and I don't think it's acceptable that VAR can sit and look at all these angles and make the same mistakes. That's where I've got an issue.
Your pal Keith in the comment section, Gianni Rubicic is a dunderhead, which is a brilliant adjective. That's why I had to put it up. Time is really getting away from us, guys. Des, thank you so much for joining us on the Hotline Live again. You know that we love having you on, so thanks very much again. And look, don't listen to Keith. You know what I mean? We're the two clever ones. We know that, so we'll go with that.
First time I've been called that for a while. No,
he wasn't talking about you, Des. He was talking about himself and Scott.
So are me and you the two dunderheads then?
Probably, aye.
Probably.
No, thanks very much, Des. We really appreciate it. Thanks as always.
No worries, guys. I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Des.
Take care.
As I say, time has moved on really quickly, so apologies. I should probably have been a bit more tight with that, but it's great having Des on. But
that was a good conversation. I enjoyed it.
It was great.
Right, but no, it proves, Keith, you touched on it there, but when VAR came in, I think everybody was like, there was too much of this will solve all the problems. This will get decisions right. VAR's the solution to all these debates and all that we have. When clearly it isn't. We're having as many, if not more, debates when VAR is there because they can't get to the.
That's because people will cut the referee some slack in the heat of the moment at full speed in the middle of a pitch when the flames are flying. It's really difficult to call these things 100%, and they deserve to be cut some slack. The guys sitting with the remote control, I'm sorry, you've got one job.
There you go.
That's right.
Right. Well, Keith, I know moving away from the refereeing decisions, I know you were at Lennoxtown today to meet with the Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
And he appeared to double down on his comments regarding Celtic fans.
Sure did. I was interested to see how he handled it today, Brendan Rodgers. I was wondering if he might kind of throw the olive branch a little bit, and in some respects he did. But he made the point and he repeated the point. He sees it as his job. His job is to give his players the best environment to make it most likely for them to succeed and perform to the level that he demands and he's looking for. Now, whether that's the training environment, whether it's the food that they eat, the pre-match routines, the stretches, etc., etc. Part of that whole package is the atmosphere inside Celtic Park. And he feels if he can influence that, and we're talking about minor gains all the time these days, if he can influence the atmosphere, if he can bring the fans together with the team and put on forge this united front, then that helps the players. That brings another 1%, 2%, 3% out of the performance level. And so he makes no apology for calling out the Celtic fans at the weekend. He repeated what he said, and he said, by the way, I think I'm experienced enough now, I'm long enough in the tooth that I can say what I feel. I can express my opinion, and I shouldn't have to back down on that. That was the quote. I'm not going to beat about the bush when I'm talking about the bush. I didn't know if it was Brendan Rodgers or Pedro Kick Sr. at that point, but no, I mean, he certainly wasn't backing down from it, not in any way, shape or form. And it'll be really interesting to see now, because there's been such a mixed response to this over the last 48 hours. It's going to be fascinating to see what it feels and looks like inside the stadium tomorrow night when Celtic are home to Dundee United. Are the fans going to get in line behind Brendan Rodgers? I think the vast majority of them will, but you know what it's like. We all know what it's like, football these days, and social kind of behaviour in general. There's a section of society that don't want to be told anything by anyone, especially not anyone who resembles a figure of authority, and they rebel against it, and they noisily rebel against it. So are we going to see something there tomorrow night that looks like that? I don't know. I hope not, because, I think Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic fans have come through a period of healing. I think there was a section of Celtic fans, we all know who we're talking about, who were displaying banners, who were, highly offensive, highly aggressive towards him when he left for Leicester City. They then clearly weren't happy about him coming back. You would think that the last period of success has been a period of healing between the pair of them. My worry is that there are people in there, malcontents, who have been perhaps waiting for a moment to use against them and to say this is why we should, we were right in the first place about him. I think Brendan Rodgers deserves greater levels of respect than that from the Celtic support, and I'm hoping that the vast majority get in line, even though I suspect there might be a noisy minority who aren't willing to do so tomorrow night.
Well, Scott, before I bring in that, there is a noisy minority on the Record Sport social media channels that his comments today really hasn't gone down well, with a lot of the Celtic fans getting in touch. Danny says to me he's basically making his escape route clear. Falling out with the fans is a no-no after we just forgave him for bolting at the back door halfway through a season. Kendo follows up by saying, once again, Brendo's ego is overtaking the size of the club. The fans pay their money and they can sing what they want. Fraser, clearly Brendan Rodgers simply doesn't care about Celtic's fans.
There you go. Fans can sing what they want. Fans can do what they want. Fans can bring pyrotechnics into grounds. Fans should be given a free pass to do whatever they want, no matter how offensive it is to anybody else, how insulting it is to anybody else. I'm sick of this stuff. And unfortunately, no, that's the truth. No, because we live in this culture now where it's that's a great thing. How offensive can we be?
Aye.
How can we make people's skin crawl out there? How dare anybody try and tell us how to behave like decent human beings? It's a disgrace, this sort of culture that we're living in just now. And that's very disheartening for me. These guys should remember, if they're meant to be about supporting Celtic and watching Celtic and wanting to see Celtic lift trophies, this man's a trophy machine. And they want to be, they're picking the fight with him here. And what he's asking for is not unreasonable. He's saying, support my team when it's 0-0, when this game could go either way, when we need to take home advantage, when we need the marginal gains that your support can give us. That's when we need it. We don't need it when we're 3-4-0 up, game's won. Do your job. Mm-hmm. You've got one job, support the team.
That comment there, Scott, that on the screen, all he was asking for was support, really, in Rodgers' defence. I mean, how do you see it?
Listen, I think Brendan Rodgers has been pretty clever, and I think he knows what he's doing. I think he likes to do this every now and again. He likes to poke at the Celtic support a wee bit, and it normally comes when there's a wee bit of adversity or a negative result, and obviously off the back of the Old Firm game, the Old Firm defeat at Ibrox, I think it's been in his mind that I think his aim. I think the reason why he does it is he senses every now and again that there's a wee bit of complacency and a wee bit of entitlement among the Celtic support, and they don't really appreciate what they're producing, the winning runs that they're producing, the trophies that they're producing, the style of football that they're producing, and he just likes to remind them to get a wee bit of a reaction, as I say, especially if there's maybe been a wee bit of negativity, which obviously there was after Ibrox. And I slightly disagree with Jack. I think there probably will be a positive reaction. I think the vast majority will get behind Rodgers, because he's done it knowing that despite the Rangers game, they're still well clear in the league. They're cruising at the top of the league in a nice position in Europe, one trophy in the bag. He's about to unveil one of the former heroes, an icon at Celtic Park in Tierney. He's in a strong position, and he's knew that when he's had a pop at the support.
Oh, he's done it from a position of strength, no doubt.
100%.
No doubt. But there is a gamble in there, Scott. There is a gamble in there, because this isn't, as he calls it himself, Brendan Mark 1. This is Brendan Mark 2. Mm-hmm. And water has gone under the bridge, and it has affected the relationship. And there will be real hardcore Celtic supporters who were never happy about him coming back, who have tolerated him, but will now react against him when he's telling them how to behave.
See, as long as they're winning, Jacko, that's as far as it will go. And Brendan Rodgers believes Brendan Mark 2 is better than Brendan Mark 1. Mm-hmm. That's what he thinks just now. And listen, he's probably justified. He thinks European performances and where they've got to so far. So I just think he's confident enough that he's got this team into a position. He's in a position himself where I'm not having that. I'm not having that wee bit of complacency. No, a wee bit of aggro, a wee bit of entitlement. Fans not happy with the passes going backwards. No, maybe as a reaction to the Ibrox game, he's tried to nip it in the bud pretty quickly, knowing that he's in that position of strength. And as I say, I think he's done it a few times. I think you look back over seasons when they've had a wee kind of negative result, when you've not really expected it. Just like the other day in that press conference, nobody expecting those comments. Very strange at the time, but now when you're looking at them, I think he's just having a wee poke at them to get a response, get them focused again on the kind of job in hand. And I think ultimately it'll end up. Listen, you're always going to have the malcontents that Jacko's talking. There's always going to be that noisy minority that are never going to accept Brendan Rodgers being back. But I think the vast majority will respond positively to what he said and get behind him, and it'll actually improve them and make it better for the rest of the season.
He also said today during this discussion, he said, while for as long as I'm here in charge of this side, it's my job, my responsibility to talk to make sure that all these elements are there that will guarantee best performance levels from the players, all the different factors we discussed earlier. He says, and then when it's my time to step away, I'll step back and I'll wait for the next manager to come in and I'll give him my support. And I'd really look forward to watching 60 games a season of full intensity for 95 minutes, 3 times a week, and, without any drop-offs. He says, that'll be great, that sounds great. So, yeah, he's thrown in little grenades, definitely done for a reason, but fundamentally, he's right. Mm-hmm. Celtic are stronger when the fans and the side are united. Every football team is stronger when its home support, its core support is united in complete alignment. That's what he's trying to do here. He's trying to get them in complete alignment because they're in a particularly busy part of the period of the season. And he knows if they can come through this, get these results, even if it's a grind, tomorrow night again, get 3 points, keep the 3 points coming in, they'll get to where they want to be. They'll forget all about, I remember that bad performance at home to St Mirren for half an hour. That's not going to be in anybody's kind of computer by the end of the season. This period here is all about being united, the fans and the team going forward as one. That's all he's trying to do here. and I think he's fundamentally correct. You know, he's right. Don't get on our backs at 0-0. That's when we need you to be loud. There's no point singing and dancing when we're 3, 4 and 5. We need that at 0-0. That'll help the team. That'll bring them on, and then we can get on top of the game, and then we can get a 1-2-0 up in front, and then everybody else can relax and enjoy it. But when the games are in the balance, that's when supporters need to be supporters. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I totally get it. If it was the other side of the coin, if this was Philippe Clement saying that about Rangers fans would be up in arms. Because they're saying, well, look at what you're serving us. They've got every right to be angry. The Celtic fans really, all they're getting is one trophy after the next. You'd think at a time like this, when the manager's asking for their help, when the players are in need of that help, that they do what their job is.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I'm aware that we've been going for what feels like half our life tonight, but I really need to finish with some transfer news from the Granite City, because we mentioned yesterday, Keith, that Jimmy Tillin really needs serious backing. Today, there's been news that the guy you can see on your screen there, who's Christers Tobers, he's the grasshopper centre half. I believe he's Latvia's captain. A bid of around £800,000 has supposedly gone in. Supposedly it's close to being agreed. And it's definitely a welcome addition, you'd have thought, to the Aberdeen ranks.
They need all the help they can get right now, don't they? And it's, you know... Listen, I've given Dave Cormack a bit of stick over the period. His choice in managers has been terrible. His decision to axe Derek McInnes in the first instance was laughable. He's paid a heavy price for it. I think in Jimmy Tillini's got this one right. I feel for him a little bit that the last few weeks have been really difficult, and I'm guessing that he'll be second guessing his own judgment again because of it. Has he picked the right guy here? But you know what? If there's an element of doubt, he's not letting it show. He's prepared to dig deep. They have got a bit of money to spend, and he's prepared to let Jimmy Tillin spend it. I mean, they're going early in this transfer window, and you know, we have got Scott Burns, who was hinting towards something like this last night, and I think Burns is pretty confident there'll be, you know, at least 4, maybe even 5 new signings over the transfer window, and I think they'll come at an important time in the season for Aberdeen.
Absolutely. Right, guys, it's been a bumper edition of the Record Sports Hotline Live. We really appreciate everyone getting in touch with your comments. Thanks so much for watching at home. Scott, I understand you'll be back tomorrow for a back-to-back appearance.
I will indeed, Daniel.
Absolutely. My mum will be chuffed.
And listen, Dan, important to thank everybody again for that milestone that we hit. If you know, you can go through your little thank you speech before we leave.
Well, if you weren't tuned in at the start, we managed to make 1 million unique views on the Hotline Live through December. We've only been going 4 months, so anyone that has got involved, anyone that watches, we're tremendously grateful. And hopefully we can go from strength to strength in this month as well.
Okay, Daniel, have you frozen?
Maybe one of you chime in. Okay. Thanks so much.
Rebooted there.
It's like a wee spinning wheel. No, thanks for watching at home tonight. We really appreciate it. We'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Scott, Keith, thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for watching.